Okay, today we are here to celebrate the publication of For You Love Me by Kellie-Anne Gallagher. How are you going, Kellie-Anne? Congratulations.
Hi, very good. Thank you. I'm so excited. I'm thrilled to be a part of the positive movement celebrating neurodiversity. And this book's more than just a book. It's my heart on paper. So I'm looking forward to, seeing people's feedback and hopefully helping some people.
Yeah, that's terrific. And happy World Authors Day as well.
Thank you.
Becoming an author, does that feel good?
It does feel good. I feel like it was always going to be a part of my journey, and it feels good to have taken that leap. And thank you for your support. And now my book is here. So
Now you're an author. So
yes.
Can you please tell viewers about your book?
So my book, I originally wrote this book for my son when he was diagnosed with ADHD and OCD. He had negative self-talk before he was diagnosed, and then when we sat in on the appointment where he got his diagnosis, it was just all the negatives were spoken about instead of the positives. So he walked away with informed but still feeling, why am I different? And not too long after he was diagnosed, I was diagnosed, and I was like, let's celebrate the unique positive things that there are to being neurodivergent. It's not all negative. We've got a lot to offer. And I wanted him, maybe he's young now and he won't want all the information now, but when he's older, it's always going to be there for him to look back and go, it's okay to be you, and it's okay to deal with things the way that you do. So hopefully my book helps him and then helps other people accept themselves and celebrate the positives of neurodivergence.
So originally you had the idea you were going to write something for your son, get it made into a book and give it to your son.
Yes, just so that it would always be there for him when he's ready, because I believe that books and stories and things come to you when you need it most, when it's important. And I thought if I just put it on paper and whenever he's ready and ready to hear the message, it's there for him to look back on and read. So
how long did it take you to write it, and where did you do your writing?
So it didn't take me long at all to write it, because I was having one of those hyper-focused moments where I was like, right, let's focus on the positives. I want my boy to feel good about himself and celebrate himself. So I just was in one of my ADHD hyper-focused moments where I sat in front of the computer, and I went from probably after dinner time, so about 7:30 at night, all the way through to the next morning, and it just flowed and I got everything out. And then I was like, wow, I just wrote a book. And then I sort of sat on it for a bit and I was like, okay, I don't really know what to do with this now. And then I added a couple of extra chapters, and then went on this journey of, do I publish it? Don't I publish it? Do I just have it for him? And then I discovered you, and the rest is history.
That's so great to hear. I just think that if you write the book for one person to help one person, it can help more people in book form.
Yes.
So to me, it's always a great idea, especially with a message like yours that is little heard, and your story, is quite dramatic as well in terms of the things that you've gone through.
Yeah.
You, as part of the awareness that you're doing, could you just explain what being neurodivergent means and the kinds of conditions that it covers?
Okay, so I'll just refer back to my book here so I don't miss anything. So neurodivergence, it covers a broad umbrella of different diagnoses. So you can have one or many different things. So there's ADHD, OCD, autism spectrum disorder. There's many more. I've probably forgotten most of them. But what applies to me is that both my son and I have ADHD. He's got OCD. But I've got ASD, which is the autistic spectrum disorder, so slightly different to him. And I was also diagnosed with PMDD and PTSD, which is, a lot of things I think tie in with the hormonal side of things with PMDD. It's something that affects women with the hormonal fluctuations in our cycle.
PMDD, for people who aren't familiar with it,
is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So it's like PMS, but it's on steroids. It's high highs, low lows. Women can either be really angry or really, really sad. Some women suffer from suicidal thoughts. It's very extreme. And a lot of women, I think, suffer in silence because you think, oh, I can't tell anybody I'm feeling these things. It's so extreme, because it will only last for a certain part of your cycle. And then you go back to normal. And it's like, what just happened? And and a lot of women get diagnosed as depressed and a lot of different things because there's not as much awareness around neurodivergence and the high chance that you can have PMDD with your neurodivergence. So they go hand in hand. So not for everyone, but for some women, and it's quite debilitating. So that's why in my book I'm like, if you feel like you're suffering from any of these things, please see your GP and talk to them about it, because you don't need to suffer. It's awful. I understand how hard it is for some women, and once you understand and you can then give yourself the kindness and feel when the emotions are coming and then know how to handle it instead of what the heck is going on, it helps you get your power back. So
are there effective treatments?
There's lots of different ways. I think it depends on what your GP recommends, but you can try antidepressants and cycle it just for the weeks that you need it. It doesn't have to be a permanent thing. But a lot of self-awareness helps as well. As soon as you know, and then you can say to everyone, look, I'm feeling a certain way, you need to give me grace right now. Saves you from having those massive highs and low lows and then not knowing what to do with yourself. So yeah.
And that affected you from what, the age of 16?
Pretty much as soon as I got my first period, I just around period time would have, instead of getting very, very aggressive, which some women can get, I'd get very, very sad and low, like, what's the point of life? What am I doing here? This is all too hard. And I struggled with that internally because it's not something that I wanted to voice so that people didn't think something was wrong with me, because I knew that it would only last for a certain time and then I'd go back to being my happy self. And yeah, so, and I think for a lot of women too, once you become a parent and you're also looking after children and then trying to manage yourself, it can become quite a difficult thing to manage. So definitely talk about it. Yeah.
Can you also tell me the difference between autism and autism spectrum disorder?
So on the spectrum means that you show some kind of, examples of autism. So obviously there's children that can be non-verbal and adults that can be completely non-verbal. The main diagnosis of autism, but then you can have particular traits. So mine are, I struggle to look people in the eye. I struggle to with contact and things like that. Like if I'm comfortable with somebody and I've learnt to push through that uncomfortability, I could. But when I was younger, I would go out of my way to avoid even people I know, if I saw them, to not look at them and not acknowledge them and sort of just stick to myself. So, and there's a lot of other traits that I have as well. But yeah, the day that I got diagnosed, I was like, oh, wow, it all makes sense. I was so grateful. So yeah.
when a GP said to you, you are neurodivergent, you felt relief?
Yeah, so my GP referred me to a psychologist, and my psychologist sat me down. I took in my massive list, and then, yeah, once I got that, you know what? I get why things have been so hard for you, and I can completely understand, and you've done really well, but this is what you've got, and this is why you do those things. The minute that I understood why, it was just this aha moment, and I gave myself the kindness and the self-acceptance that I deserve. Like, you should treat your younger self instead of constantly like, it's easy for someone else, why can't I do it? Like, what's wrong with me? And it's just this negative, So it was so good, and I just flipped my mentality and the way I spoke to myself. And then I'm trying to be the example for my son too, because quietly he was struggling with the same things, being in trouble with school a lot. What's wrong with me? I'm the naughty kid, negative, negative, negative. And it's like, no, we think different, we operate different, and that's okay.
Yeah. Wow. When I started reading your book and I came to the part with the list, I just loved it. I love this list, which is the list that you just mentioned.
Yes.
You were asked, tell us the context, and then if you can share some of the list, I would love that. You were asked to prepare a list of things that...
Well, I wasn't really asked. Because I knew with my son when I went in for his appointment with the child psychologist and how he was sat down, and there was a lot of discussion with me. What are some of the things that he does, like his repeat behaviors and things like that? And he even demonstrated it while we were in the appointment. And that was when I started thinking, well, I do all the things that he does. Like, if he's got this, like, what do I have? Like, and then I went home and I was like, right, I'm going to write a list of everything that I do and all the things that I've kept to myself, and just dealt with. And I'm going to take it in and be like, what is this? What do you make of this? So, yeah, I had quite a long, extensive list, and it's very, like, it's deeply personal. So whoever reads my book, you're going to learn so much about me that you may not have already known, especially for my friends if they get this. But, yes, it was very enlightening.
Yeah, please read us some.
Okay, well, I highlighted a few. I won't go through all of them because there was a lot. But I'm extremely sensitive to facial expressions and voice and body movements. And I was told that I was a highly sensitive, emotional empath, which can go hand in hand with neurodivergent and ADHD people. We become very sensitive to other people's, movements and emotions and things just because we're so used to being in trouble or being spoken down to for the things that we do that we sort of become hyper aware of other people so that we can compensate and not affect other people, if that sort of makes sense. Time, I'm constantly rushing. I only just make it on time, and I'm anxious about time. Like, I don't even have clocks. I can't handle wearing a watch because I'm just always feeling like I'm later. I've got to rush somewhere because my brain's already going at 100 miles an hour. So I just don't like anything telling me, like, hurry up. I can't stand waiting in line at grocery stores. Like, people standing too close to me makes me anxious. Like, if they're in my personal space, I feel physically sick. Like, it's just really distressing for me. I never read instructions. Like, if I buy something and I've got to put it together, I'll just figure it out myself. Like, I refuse to sit there and read instructions. I can't stand it when people talk at me, not to me. It makes me feel ill. So if someone's quite a talker and they're just at me, like, I'll just either make up an excuse to leave or I'll just walk off because I just physically cannot handle the stress that it causes me. I can never find my phone. Like, my husband and my son are like, if we had $1 for every time I ask them, where's my phone? Like, I'm always losing it. My thoughts aren't linear. Like, I have multiple tabs open in my brain like a computer all the time, and I'll jump from one thing to the other constantly. And my husband says to me, like, in a conversation, he's like, can you please start at the start? Because I'll just skip a whole chapter and go to the exciting bit that I want to talk about. And he'll be standing there going, like, what? So I have to slow down and, like, rethink things. Like, another thing is if there's too much mess in my house, it makes me feel ill. Like, I feel like I'm going to explode. Like, I've gotten really good at just, if things just overwhelm me and it's sensory overload, which I didn't realize at the time, I'd just throw things out. Like, too much, too hard, can't handle, get rid of it. If I'm stressed, I binge eat. It's like an emotional way of coping with something, and I didn't realize that that's part of being, like, if you're neurodivergent, like, if you are in sensory overload, we look for ways to sort of self-soothe and self-calm. So I'd just be like unconsciously eating and then wouldn't even realize how much I ate till I felt sick, and then I'd be like, oh, well, that was ridiculous. I struggle with repeating thoughts, especially if I'm in a conflict or a situation where I feel unsafe. Like, I'd have fearful thoughts, or my thoughts would be on, like, a constant loop. I'm really justice sensitive, which is something that neurodivergent people have. So I can't handle injustice. I can't handle liars. If I'm in an argument, I'm like a machine gun with the truth because I won't be able to remember anything now. But if I'm in conflict, it just all comes back to me and I'm like, it's either right or wrong. There's no in between. And I cry easily. Being an empath, that makes me, like, super sensitive to other people's pains and illnesses. Like, I feel like it's happening to me, so I don't watch the news. I don't watch anything scary. I don't watch anything gory because I emotionally and physically simply cannot handle it. Even if it's just a made up movie, my brain, it's just too much. Yeah, and I said about the negative self-thoughts, that was something that I struggled with. Like, I'd be thinking things like, my default was to pick on myself. I was useless, I'm hopeless, and that is something that I've really had to work on and, turn around to be an example and show that you can overcome these things. I struggled really badly in school, like, and I don't think many people knew how badly I struggled because I was so good at masking my struggles, which is something that a lot of females do. ADHD is a lot more easy to spot in young boys or men. Women present differently. We're very good at masking or hiding our symptoms, so it comes out in different ways. But I could not read music, and my teacher would have to just repeat it to me, and I'd be so embarrassed and so scared to say, like, I still don't understand. I just couldn't comprehend the whole point of it. And maths as well. Maths was a really, really hard one for me So I ended up by high school getting really good, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, but I got really good at cheating because it was the only way I could get through exams and get through things, because by that stage I just was so embarrassed and didn't want to share that I didn't know how to do things that was so easy for everyone else. And I had mentioned to people, I think I have a learning disorder, a learning difficulty. Things are just so hard for me. And people were kind of like, no, you know, you're getting A's and B's. You're fine. You don't have anything wrong. It's just study more. And I'm like, okay. So then it was like something that was dismissed, and you internalize it and you try harder to compensate. And it eventually gets to the point where you can't do that anymore and you can come find an overload. Yeah, what else? I became real good at being a people pleaser. I hated saying no. I felt really uncomfortable with saying no to people because I'd be so worried about upsetting them, like worried about how I was affecting other people. So that was hard. I'd have random things too, like I cannot stand lights on in the house during the day. Bright lights is too much. It just overwhelms me. If it's daytime, there's no lights. Or if my dog, and I love my dogs, but if they're panting, I cannot handle the panting noise. It's completely irrational. I don't understand, but they have to go outside if they're panting because it just triggers me. And that's, yeah, another one of the neurodivergent traits. And yeah, I don't like talking to strangers. I'll avoid talking to strangers. I can't do small talk at all. But if I know you, I'll tell you my life story. I'll overshare. But if I don't know you, I am so uncomfortable, and it can come off sometimes. People when I was younger accused me of being like snobby or aloof, and it's literally not. It's just that I just don't understand how to connect with idle small talk. I want to talk about deep things, or I'm happy not to talk at all. So yeah, that's just some examples.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. And it's still, hearing them again, I have hard relate to so many of them. For the first time when I was reading your book, I was like, I think I might be on the spectrum. And it had never actually crossed my mind, just through a lack of awareness. So thank you for being so honest. That's the value is your honesty, and that you've come to a point where you're feeling good and you want others to come with you, which I think is just a beautiful reason to publish a book. And I will say, if you read that list on TikTok or talk about your things on TikTok, boom, you're going to find a lot of viewers. I will bet money on this, because you talk about it in a way, you know, the firsthand experience, and so real. And so, yes, it's just, it's fascinating as well. I think for people who are not neurodivergent to learn more. So I know you've got a TikTok account, and I'm going to be coaching you.
I don't know how to do what I'm doing, but I'll go.
Just do what we're doing now and turn the camera on. And then upload a 1 minute clip, or try 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and just see your view counts. I would like to talk about Lucas Jr., your son.
Yes.
What kinds of behavior was he exhibiting? Again, like, you know, thinking of parents who might be watching this thinking, I wonder if, you know, my son or daughter could be neurodivergent.
So what took us longer to realize that he may be neurodivergent is I'd never really been around young children until I had my son. He was my first, you know, I'd, you know, maybe occasionally seen them, but I've never spent long, lengthy periods of time. So I didn't know what symptoms that he was presenting was any different to, I just thought that was him. Looking back now, he thrived younger because we gave him freedom. So he's super brave, super confident, very intelligent. Got to talk to strangers, not an issue, have a conversation from a very young age, very gifted in certain things like with music, and he'd beatbox it, and just he'd do things that was extremely brave, like wanting to ride motorbikes and go on rides and just all sorts of stuff, and he was just happy to live life. And then when the fun, or we would say, look, time to go home now, no more BMXing, or we've got to go from here, the meltdowns that he would have were next level, to the point where there's no rationalizing, there's no reasoning with him. We'd have to either just pick him up while he's in the middle of his meltdown, put him in the car or wherever we were, or at home in his room, sit with him in a safe place until he'd calm down. And then from there, it's like nothing happened. So he really, what he was presenting at the time was a complete inability to regulate his emotions. But we just thought, oh, he's chucking a tantrum because he's not allowed to do what he wants to do anymore. And sort of just was like, oh, well, that's how he is. And that's just what we've got to deal with. And it wasn't until he went to school prep was great because it's play-based and you're outside and you've got friends and he thrived because he loves it. And then once it gets to grade 1 and 2 and it's more structured and you've got to sit in the class and you've got to like control your movements and you've got to pay attention. And that's where things started to show up, because he had these impulses where he'd do movements and he wouldn't even realize. And so his teacher would be like, he'd be halfway climbing up the wall while she's talking to him because he doesn't even know that he's, you know, having these bodily movements while he's talking to her. Or he'd call out in class, whatever he wanted to say, he'd say. And so he got in trouble a lot more. And then he'd come home and one day he was like, I'm just the stupidest kid. I'm so dumb. I hate myself, because he's like, I'm the naughty kid, mum. And that broke my heart. I was like, hearing my son at such a young age say things that I'd kept to myself because I didn't want anyone to know how I was struggling, because I didn't even know what I was struggling with. I was like, this isn't normal. How can he have the same default attack himself when we've tried to create this happy, vibrant life where he gets to do everything? So his teacher was like, maybe we should do some investigations, and then took him off to the child psychologist with the school's report and what we had to say, and sat him down there. And the psychologist, from there was, and he was also presenting like repetitive hand movements. He'd have little calluses on his hands because he'd have these little tics that he'd have to do with his hands, or inside his cheeks, he'd chew his cheeks, or if he was particularly nervous, like he loves to do jiu-jitsu. But even in the middle of a jiu-jitsu competition, if sensory something's on his face or it's not right, he'll stop and do things like this. So he really sort of struggles with the impulse control. And then once we got that diagnosis, then from there it was like, okay, let's flip the script now. You've got a lot of great things going for you. But for any other parent watching this, and if they're thinking, could my child be neurodivergent? I'd definitely say it's in the repeat patterns. Kids love to have fun. Sometimes they'll chuck a tantrum if they leave, but if your child's chucking tantrums about everything and showing that complete inability to regulate once they hit that limit, and then it goes next level and there's no reasoning with them, I think there's a pretty good sign that something's going on. And if they're fussy eaters, if they only want to eat particular things and there's a whole sensory based thing to it, I think that's usually a pretty good indication as well. So
okay. And again, with Lucas Jr., what are the benefits of getting that diagnosis?
So now what we did as soon as we found out, because then he was like, oh, why do I have to be different to everyone? And we're like, no, you're not different. And so we deep dived all the celebrities. So he loves motorbikes. So we were looking into Travis Pastrana and all the top, athletes and everyone that was diagnosed with ADHD. And we're like, look, mate, look at these guys and these women. Look how successful they are. This isn't a bad thing. This is your superpower. And I know it sounds cliche to say ADHD is my superpower, but when that hyper focus and those special interests are, focused in on and you apply yourself to, the sky's the limit for people that are neurodivergent. So that's why we're like, it's okay, mate. You can do and be whoever you want. This is not going to hold you back.
And that's another great thing about your book is it includes the gifts of being neurodivergent. Could you share some of those?
So for Lucas, he can listen to a song or any kind of music and he'll pick up his guitar, and mind you, he's only had a handful of lessons, but he'll pick up a guitar and play the Australian anthem. No music in front of him to tell him how to do that.
On Instagram the other day. How? It's amazing.
I don't know. He'll just hear it on the radio once and just instinctively know. And for me, that blows my mind because I can't read music. I don't understand the whole concept of it. I'm just like, you definitely didn't get that from us. This is your special gift. And he's incredibly because he's been diagnosed and now he accepts himself, he's incredibly empathetic and kind to others, that sort of he understands people, and I feel like he shows a maturity beyond his age for accepting other people for how they are and not getting upset by certain things that people be like, oh, that's weird or whatever. He's very intuitive and empathetic and understanding of others, which I think is quite an incredible gift for someone so young. But I've got weird things where I recognize patterns. Like I can't remember anyone's name, but I'll never forget a face, and it blows my husband's mind. I'll be like, oh, that's such and such that, we knew 20 years ago or whatever, or I'll spot somebody in the crowd, or I just recognize patterns in people's behaviors and things like that. Like I can predict the way certain people are going to behave or what they're going to do. And at first my husband was like, okay, whatever. And now he's kind of like, wow, that's so weird that you can read and understand what someone's going to do. Or I'm really good at packing things or like putting things away or doing something really, really quickly. Like, I don't know. It's just, you have
It's your
these,
Tetris.
yeah,
Don't you think?
Tetris. Yeah,
Tetris. If you can
that's
do it
it.
in your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing. How important has self-acceptance been in your life?
It's been the most crucial thing, because I mean, this is why I even wrote this book, because for 39 years I went thinking something was wrong with me, not knowing what it was, but my negative default to always pick on myself first, instead of and taking on people's, you know, opinions of my shortcomings, because no one is harder on themselves than someone that's neurodivergent. It's just, honestly, if you know anyone that is, their internal dialogue, because we struggle so much and we try so hard to, you know, compensate to, you know, live in a neurotypical world. So to go that long internally putting myself down instead of celebrating my gifts and seeing my gifts and things as weird, and not communicating or voicing it, just trying to, you know, be normal instead of quirky. It was really hard. Like, it was really hard until, you know, I saw my son go through it, and I'm like, no, I don't want him to struggle like I have. I'm going to be the example. I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to turn this around, and this is going to be a positive experience, and you're going to spend the rest of your life seeing this as a positive thing. And then hopefully, if he has children, if that's what he wants, what they're going to know the quirks straight away, and it's never going to be like, what's wrong with me? It's going to be, oh wow, this is the amazing things that I have, and it's something to be celebrated, not seen as a difficulty. So self-acceptance has turned my life around, my whole internal dialogue, my whole enjoyment for life, like my just, yeah. And I mean, I've been through some struggles and some really tough things in my life, but I've been able now to just give myself the kindness and grace that I needed to give if I was talking to my younger self. And my enjoyment for life and self-acceptance has been incredible. And who thought at 40, when I was younger, I thought my life would be over, and now I'm like, I feel like it's just beginning. I feel like a new me. So yeah.
It's just fantastic. Is Lucas Jr. pretty excited that you've published a book?
He is. And because he's proud of his ADHD. He'll tell anyone that he's got ADHD because he's proud of it. So yeah, so he was really happy that I wrote him a book. And obviously he hasn't read it yet because it's not something for him. But like I said, it's there for him when he's ready and he wants to. Yeah.
And he can listen to the audiobook, which will start on next week.
That's true.
What would you say to someone who's contemplating a book that's deeply personal?
I see, when I wrote this book, I didn't care if one person read it or 1 million. I was so proud of the message and the positivity and the light I wanted to give to others. So I think if you go from writing a book that's deeply personal, going that I just want to help one person, it takes the pressure off, and you look at it from a point of view where this is to help someone. So my story does matter. Everyone's story matters. I think everyone should share their stories, and the more people understood what we all went through, and the more kindness and self-acceptance and, you know, learning from different point of views, I think it's extremely valuable. So if anyone wants to share a deeply personal book, I think they should. And honestly, I've got to the point of my life where it's going to help those that need it, and whatever other feedback it gets, I'm not interested. I only want to know that positive. And if you come at it from that point of view, I think that, you know, don't be scared to share your personal story, because you will help people.
And when the people haven't, you know, read the book yet because it's out today, but you've already had some really beautiful comments from people on social media.
Yes, I think there's a lot of women, because, you know, the average age for diagnosis for ADHD is quite young in boys. I think it's 7 to 10. I'm not great with statistics, but for females, it's our 30s. So it's not until we're having kids and then we see our kids get diagnosed that we're like, huh, that sounds like me. So there's a lot of women that have gone a long time in their life feeling a certain way and just dealing with it. And then I think hopefully if they read my book and they feel less alone in all the feelings and the things they've gone through, like, that's what I hope. So yeah, I've got some feedback for that, and a lot of people that are excited to read my story. So yeah,
It's so
I'm really
nice
grateful.
when you give your book to the world. And how old is Lucas Jr. now?
He's 9.
He's 9. Okay, terrific. Has the experience of self-publishing a book been what you expected?
I I didn't know what to expect because I went into this with no preconceived ideas because I just randomly wrote this book and then sat on it. And then I did the Gabby Bernstein bestseller masterclass, and I did it. Most people do it to write their book, but I'd already written it. So I went straight to the publishing through a publisher or the self-publishing and having the opinions about that. And I was like, I'm going to self-publish. And then I just got on and deep dived because I was like, I don't care if one person or 100 million people read this story. I want to get it out there for someone. So I'm not going to wait and go the other way. And then the universe, you put it out there and it delivers. And I got on Instagram and I came across your page, and you have just been an incredible part of my healing journey, which is my book. And I'm so grateful that I met you. So I highly recommend anyone that wants to self-publish to come and see you because it's been wonderful. So thank you.
Thanks, Kellie-Anne. That's so nice to hear. You also have a beautiful teacher in your life. Do you want to give her a shout out?
Yes, that's to Mrs. Schumacher. That was Junior's grade 2 teacher and grade 3 teacher. She was incredible. She's one of those once in a lifetime teachers that she just cares about her students so much. So she recognized some things. She's been a teacher for a while. So she recognized some things in Junior, and she just came at it with Lucas, at a loving, caring point of view where she's like, let's investigate this further, because I knew nothing about neurodivergence or ADHD. I had no idea. And because she was like, let's investigate this further, and then I was like, no worries, straight away booked in, and it just opened our world to give us the answers that we needed to give him the self-acceptance and the kindness, and then the way the schools now made allowances and helped and supported him through his neurodivergence, and how I can support him, and then how I can support myself, and my husband can support the both of us. And so Mrs. Schumacher was the whole reason that I even wrote this book where we are now. So I'm very grateful for her.
Yeah, beautiful. Where can people get in touch with you to find out more about your book, which is available as an ebook, a paperback, and as I mentioned, an audiobook will be coming next month?
Yes, so I've got Instagram, which is just Kellie-Anne Gallagher. I've just joined TikTok, and I've got a webpage that I will launch, but I've got the links in all my accounts to my book. So yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Maybe you could make a publication day reel on TikTok.
Yeah, okay, sure, will do.
Cool. Are you planning to write a second book?
I think I am, now that I've got this first one out. Like this one was, for my boy, just to say, for you love me, I love you, we can get through anything. And now that I've done that, I'm like, you know what? I've got so much more that I actually want to delve into and expand on. So I really do think that there will be a number 2. Can't say when, but I definitely would like to write another book.
Amazing. Because there's a lot in your book that we haven't even touched on today.
Yes.
And a book, coming from some of your experiences as a woman, like, sort of like the teen to where you are today could be really valuable as well.
Yeah, maybe just expand a bit more into that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, congratulations. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you, Kellie-Anne. And I look forward to seeing a lot more.
Thank you so much, Jess. I really